Back at you, peoples. Friday morning, I wanted to get out the Roudnhill weeklies for Nvd, Tesla, Apple, Coin, and Palantir. Yes, the weeklies. All right, and I did a little analysis. I think you guys are going to like this. It's due, and I've been thinking about it, and it actually surprised me. I was doing it thinking one way, and then I got into it. I said, "Oh, okay, well that was better." So I'm going to share all that with you, and I think this will be helpful. So feel free in the comments. Some of you guys get it, some of you are thinkers, so I do appreciate that. Because you really, when it's your money, you really got to think about this kind of stuff and what's best. And sometimes until you run all the numbers, the old saying, you run the numbers, you really don't know. You think, you feel, but you're not sure. All right. So I find it an exercise not in futility, but an exercise that's educational always. All right. So NVIDIA, 5.9 on the weekly. It paid 42.8, almost 43 cents. So you can see, cents wise, it's up there. Well, remember, in order to get yield, it all has to do with what's the current price. So these things have been around since like the 19th of February they launched, and then they started paying the week of February 28th. That's going to come back to be important. So that's why I'm talking to it. So 43 cents, call it 61% yield when you annualize that. Um, there's the current price. Again, green when it goes up, red when it goes down. These are last week's IVs, but they don't typically change a lot. Tesla's doing pretty well, and we'll go through that. 43 cents on a $33 stock. This paid 42 cents on a $36 stock. So you can see you're yielding more. Nvidia's really fell off. I said to you guys, a lot of you guys, I'm not saying it's over and it's still a very good company in a lot of ways, but I haven't been impressed with the kind of margins they're able to create with hardware are just not sustainable. I've been out there with dominant, the company I work for was very, very dominant in electronic storage. And we bought something like 30 other software companies, and we were an engineering powerhouse. We had a great sales force, loved my time there, but you can see that, when competitors come into niches like, little people that played to servers or they played in digital media is a different use, or scientific. You go out there and you're studying the moon and the stars and you're doing space stuff, scientific applications, which nowadays you think of supercomputers and stuff. There's always been in the scientific arena, the old craze and Sperry Univacs and some others that were in those niches. But hardware always is the first to fall in niches. There's always somebody that's going to outdo you eventually. You can have a 5, 10 year run, and then, you know, the technology is not relevant. Somebody invents something differently. Whereas software, just the margins are just amazing. So anyway, um, Nvidia paid 61.13 and a Geo 43 cents. Tesla had a nice. Now remember, you get these weekly, so you get that euphoria, but I'm going to tell you what I did in my analysis, and I think you'll like it. So here's the Apple. Oops, I did not plug in Apple's current price, or not Apple, AAPW. Oh, 36.30. Oh, yeah, I remember it now. I had it on the other page, but I didn't carry it on. It's a $3 drop. That is ugly, Apple. Let's get our yield on that. That's not going to be as good. Oh, yeah, because the payment went way up. So sometimes the volatility in these funds can get you paying. So if you look, they haven't had any kind of payment like that. They drop $3 and they pay more. Why? because I imagine the 30-day IV's up around 60-50% instead of this normal rate here. So very interesting, guys. All right, so let's keep going. We got two more. Coin. Oh, did I do the same thing and not carry it? I know where these are. Whoops. Coin price is 3207. That's up just a little, 23 cents, 31 cents. Okay, guys. Um, let's see what our yield is. Our yield is 69.40. All right. Okay. So moving along. Now, what else I do here for you guys? I do it as much for myself so I can analyze this stuff a little better. What are similar high payments? Oh, look at this. Well, it's always good to make note of, especially when you've only got the amount of payments that you have here, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 payments. And look at this. So we fell off a little bit, but Coney's still yielding. Good for Coin and Coney. YieldW. All right, so Palantir paid 67 cents. Nice. All right. And we have 85% yield. It was up 55% because it's got a high IV. It's very volatile. Look at this last earnings. Price for perfection drops, comes roaring back. Down a little bit today. I think I saw 117 a little bit from being 119 yesterday. But even within that, very volatile. All right, so this is where I did some extra work for you. So look at the top first, and then I'll show you what I did down here. So this all launched on 219, all five of these funds. Here's the inception price. I know, guys. Well, Bruce, I got a deal on it. I bought it when it dropped. Good. That's how you do. That's how you win the game, right? You DCA, you buy on pullbacks, etc. If you're bullish, right? The only fund that, and I was thinking to myself, look, I own some Pulte. I own a lot more Palantir, and I'm very bullish on the stock, regardless of sometimes if I'm bearish on tech and the market. Having said that, I still want to be in the yield game since I report on it and do things. Although now I'm moving a lot of my money into the miners because I see that much better going ahead. Not from a yield income game, although there's some, so that's why I keep a little bit of Coney, a little bit of Misty, a little bit of Pulte. So my thinking is, well, I wouldn't buy these weeklies because the payments don't equal the big payment. In other words, 4.3 or 4 of the payments don't equal a single Pulte payment. And that is true. But when I did this exercise down here, and I'm going to go into it in a minute, it reminded me the negatives about YieldMax, that they have bigger NAV loss because they're paying $4, $5, $6 or $3, $4, $5, soon to be a $6 payment, I think, with Palantir if you watch my other video. But the idea being it takes a while to recover those. So I want to take you through these and say, okay, here's your weekly changes. You've got it in the others. Here is your gain or loss. So look at this. You've lost 34% on Coin and on Tesla. You've lost 28 and 27% on Apple and Nvidia. Just in this 219 right up to today period of time. Don't worry about the dollars, just come off the thousand. But it's real. So here's your dividend payment. So ask yourself, all right, even in Pulte, I bought Pltw. Well, in their case, they're positive. They're the only one here that has a total return of positive. I know, you know what I get in comments, and some of it's logical. People say, oh, Bruce, give it time, DCA, reinvest the dividends. Yes, you're right. But why don't you do that in an area? I mean, isn't that foolish to say, really need income? People that really need income don't reinvest their dividends. If you want to ride a stock for the best method and then add a little money by selling some calls, it's not hard to learn how to do covered calls, guys. I've trained a few people in my discords that have asked me. I've trained them on how to do more sophisticated options, and it's very doable if you have a little bit of time. And I'm talking about people that work full time. I did it for years when I worked full time. I have more time now in my retirement to do it, and that's kind of why I'm doing videos. When I was working in investing, I wouldn't have had time, even though I didn't know much about and frankly, back in that era, YouTube wasn't a big deal. So, anyway, where I'm going with that is these are surprising. So, here's your gain loss. So, you only lost 7%. All right. Well, what did you make in yield? So, one can look at it and say, okay, if I bought PLTW right at the beginning, I paid 44.24 and the current price is 41. So I've lost $3.16 in NAV. I know it's not a real loss, but it's a paper loss. It's valid right up to the moment. And but I paid back 463. That's why its total return is still positive. But most of these ones aren't, right? So what happens is your yield's 1047, and when you say that's only for 79 days, if you make it 365, I have a 48.40% yield in Palantir over the 79 days. Well, the 79-day period means a lot. If you compared it to October to when this thing launched, you'd have been way better off in these than you would be right now. And so that's what I did in this analysis down here. And when I went to do PLTW versus PLTY, it wouldn't have been fair if I went back to Pulte when it launched. I literally had to make them both 219. Well, look at Pulte. It dropped 22% because that's what YieldMax funds do when they pay $4 and $5 a month. I mean, if it were to go up, what did the underlying do in that period of time? What did Palantir do? It went from 112 to 119. Not a lot, but up 6.3. This went down 23.05. This went down 8.3, right? From the $44. But at least the dates, these absolutely are all the closes for 2/19/2025 and today 5/9, sorry, the close on 5/8 of 2025. So everything's consistent. I just wanted you to know when this thing launched back in October, it was 51.43. See, so and that's when I bought. I added a little when it pulled after it ran up to 100 and then it pulled back to low 60s. So I added a little bit in the 60s. So my average price is about 54 now on Pulte. But and so people can do that. People tell me all the time, well, my average price is nowhere near the launch price because it was high then, or sometimes it's low. It's just like Misty, guys. Those of you, if your average price on Misty is 35, you're sucking a lot of the time. But if your average price is 22 on Misty, you don't get many opportunities, right, to do it that way, but you do get those opportunities um, because it'll just kill you. You buy at 35 and it runs to 45 and you're feeling great and you get a big payment. And then all of a sudden, when it goes back to 20, you got that sick feeling in your stomach. I know those of you that have multi-year horizon, it's not as bad. And that's true in general in the stock market. So let me take you through. So how did I do all this? Just on Pulte and PLTW. And I could do the same thing for these income, because people should say, do I want to be in YieldMax or do I want to be in Roudnhill? Because every one of these has an equivalent, right? I just happen to like Pltw, so I wanted to do it for myself and educate you guys at the same time. So I went through and said, okay, here's the first payment, right? 1823 on PLTW, then 1745, 47, 51, 34, and we scroll right out here. So you got 11 weekly payments, which is real close to 12, which is what a 3-month payments would be for Pulte. So they're close enough. So the big winner in yield and cash flow, okay, now you also have to consider what you paid for them. At 219, I had to do this. You paid 86.98. You only paid 44, right? But that's taken into consideration when you calculate yield. We use price. So you collected 1592 and 463. So you got an 1830 yield versus a 1047 yield. And then I could do annualized on those and so forth, and you're going to get a number. But I just simply did the simple ones. And I said, all right, well, during that same, May 9th, from 219 to May 9th, I dropped 23% in NAV and I dropped 8%. So when you add those together, you're still behind the 8 ball because you lost $20 from 86.98 to 66.93, and you only got 16 here, right? So that's why you're behind. And you're barely ahead in this one because you lost $4, right? Not quite $4, 360, 370, but you got 460 in payment. So that win. But if you come along here, you gain $7, right? It's all in the NAV gain or loss. You didn't get any income. But is your total return, did you make more money on your money? Yes, you did. Okay. So you people that are reinvesting, it's okay to do that. You will enhance your overall, return on that. But I question whether, yeah, I know what you're going to say. I don't really know how to do the options, and let somebody that's an option expert do that. Okay, some fairness. For those of you that don't, do both and see how you do. All right, so that's what I got. Real interesting. When I first started doing it, I said, oh, YieldMax is going to kill them, right? Pulte's going to, whoops, I got this backwards, guys. Even though I know. That's just, so these have to get flipped too. What did I say this one was now? 830. Minus, ah, okay, so yield should be done by dividing equals this divided by this. There we go. And this is equal to this divided by this. Okay. I knew they belonged in the different areas, and so do these, right? So this should be nav gain loss. It's F17. It should be F16. All right, sorry about that, guys. When one thing is off, it throws you off. And then this one isn't done right. This should be L That really messed it up. This one should get it back on track. It should be 20. There we go. Okay, guys. So you get it. Let me know if you want me to do some of the other ones in the comparison. But I think it's food for thought. It really makes you think. A lot of people might come, oh, Bruce, I own that one, or I'm waiting to buy it cheaper. But I don't know how many of you sit down and thought about, should I be in the weekly? Should I be in the monthly? How do they really compare? So that's a good. But just understand that YieldMax, because it pays really well, if you get it in the right time and get the price low, you really do pretty well. But if you get in at the wrong time, not only do you lose more on the NAV, you can make more. I mean, you're always going to make more in yield. That's why I do the curve comparison. In general, curve tends to lose less on its NAV because it's writing a month option, while YieldMax is writing 4 options. So they have to be right or they have to do better 4 times. Sometimes that's easy to do, sometimes it isn't. So you get a little more stability in curve, but you get outsized payments in YieldMax. And it's the same thing here. That's why the weeklies, when I was comparing Defiance and Defiance and YieldMax and Roudnhill on the same kind of indexes, the S&P and the Russell and the SPY, they go back and forth. But Defiance typically can pay a lot, but Defiance is generally sometimes the worst. And then they got better for a while. I need to go back and run those again. I haven't reported on Defiance, but I've been entering into my database. All right, guys, sorry to belabor this longer, but you see here what I did. I think this is fair. And it shocked me. If I went into it, I would have said to you, "Oh, I think Pltw did a lot better because I've been seeing these big payments, right? I know I'm doing better in my Palantir." So that's why I went back and added this one at the end. All right, guys, have a great. You're already into the trading day. I need to get over and watch some things. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, and I'll come out with some more mining stock stuff for you. Okay, bye. Again, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Have a great, great weekend. Bye, peoples.